Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be watching the IGN videos with Rafe Judkins, where he exclusively breaks down the Wheel of Time main trailer. I've probably watched about 1 minute or 2 minutes of this, so a lot of this is going to be new for me.
Swear your oath.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you my breakdowns.
Hey everyone, I am Rafe Judkins, showrunner of The Wheel of Time, and I'm breaking down the trailer for you.
The wheel weaves as the wheel wills.
So this is Moraine with her hand on the oath rod. The idea is that the women of the Aes Sedai swear that they will never lie, that they won't make weapons with the one power, and that they won't use the one power as a weapon against others, except in the extreme defense of their life. It's something that people may not be expecting to see in the first season, but I think that they will like how we're using it. And
so, he mentions how we probably weren't expecting to see the oath rod. I would agree with him on that. I definitely wasn't expecting to see it, and as he said, it's going to be interesting in the way they're using it. From what I can see and gather, just with the way I'm feeling about seeing the oath rod, there was something I missed right at the beginning of the trailer, and that was what I believe to be a flashback of Moraine in her accepted outfit, when she would obviously then take the accepted test, and then she would move on to becoming an Aes Sedai, which I think is interesting because maybe we'll get her scene with the oath rod when she becomes an Aes Sedai. And then obviously the scene where Rafe is narrating over, it could be something to do with them coming back after the defeat at the hands of Logain in this first season. And she's like, you swore on this oath rod to not use the one power as a weapon, or something similar along those lines, and it's kind of reiterating that fact, almost a scolding that the Amelin seat will be giving Moraine for the supposed not downfall, but the mission failure, shall we say. So yeah, should be interesting to see.
Here we are getting our first glimpse in the trailer of Moraine using the one power, which is a very important thing in the books. One thing we'll find out in the show as it continues on is that when men do use the one power, the consequences are huge. So here we can see Moraine and Liandrin standing up again.
I thought that was Liandrin. I did that in my breakdown video. It was very difficult to make out because the quality that I saw wasn't great, and she's very much in the shadows in the shot. But yeah, nice to see a bit of confirmation from Rafe that it was indeed Liandrin.
Against Logain. And Logain is a really important character in the books, that we wanted to bring up earlier in the show, and more fully in this first season than he was in the first book. He's the first man we really meet using the one power. And so to see him play a bigger role on the TV show lets us show what it means for a man to use the one power, instead of you just having to read a big description of what it means in the books or a story about it in the books. We can actually show it on the screen and you can understand the consequences of it.
Now, I like that. It's very true. Logain is our first male channeler that we do come across in full, I would say, supposedly, in the book series. And I love the fact they're fleshing out his character and giving him a lot more screen time, just for the fact they want to showcase what the consequences, as Rafe puts it, are when a male channeler uses the one power. It's really cool. Obviously, there's loads of scenes in the first book that happen off scene. Obviously, the battle for Gildan with Logain. We've seen many a glimpse of that now. And there was a sneaky little photo in the Wheel of Time interactive feature. I'm not sure if a lot of people saw this or picked up on it, where you can see the destruction that he causes in Gildan in his battle there with this dragon swan. But yeah, it is going to be really interesting to see how they bring it out onto the screen, what happens when a male channeler uses the one power. And I just think it's a really cool choice that they went with introducing Logain and just having him as a wider and more broader and important character than he is very early on in the books. Obviously, as we know, certain things happen with Logain later on, which I am not going to discuss. And yeah, he starts to play a bigger role. So yeah, it's really nice to see they've introduced him a lot earlier in the TV series, and obviously, hopefully, stuff will happen later on down the line.
Servants of all. It is they who serve the world.
So here we are looking at the Aes Sedai in the hall of the tower at the White Tower. The Aes Sedai are this group of the most powerful women in the world, and they've separated themselves into different ajas, and each of these 7 ajas has a focus. The yellows are healers, the browns are interested in knowledge, the greens are the warriors, and so each of them has kind of separated out the way that they interact with the world into these different groups, and they have colors associated with them, and these women they love a color scheme, so they wear the colors that they are part of that aja as well. Yeah, so here you can see the iconic jewel that Moiraine has and wears on her head, and we thought it was really important to see it at some point during the show. So when she goes to the Hall of the Tower or has these very heightened moments in the show that are very formal, then we'll see her wearing her classic head jewel.
So that's interesting with the way and choice they've gone about using Moraine's Quisiera. And just the wording Rafe used there, it seems like it's only going to be brought out for formal occasions or special occasions of heightened tension. We all know what the use of Moraine's Quisiera is, so maybe it's going to be put to use during these scenes as a way to eavesdrop on other members of the tower. But yeah, that's interesting.
I didn't choose this path, but I will follow it.
Where next?
The 2 rivers. The old blood runs deep in those mountains.
Yeah, so here we can see this incredible mountainscape with these women walking through it. And I can confirm that every single thing in this frame was shot in camera. There's no VFX here. Whoa. So it was really important to us as much as possible to try to put our actors in these incredible places, to put as much as we could of the monsters in front of them, to try to get as much of the show in camera as we possibly could to help make it feel real. Because fantasy, I think, when you drop out of it, it's because you feel like it's not real. And so trying to at least give that to our actors so that they could really feel like they're in a real world was hugely important to us.
That is something I absolutely agree with, and I'm really happy to hear Rafe, speak about. So for one, I totally agree. From a actor's standpoint, and I'm sure we're all quite aware of this. We're quite aware of this, is the fact that the more realistic the environment is and the props and surroundings are, the more realistic your performance will be, because you will feel that the world you're in is much more real than, say, what happened in the prequels for Star Wars when the technology was only starting to become available to do, blue screens, green screens, visual effects. A lot of the environments those actors were using at the time weren't there. And so you can't see what you're, acting in front of, let alone with the droids and whatnot. So that becomes very difficult to give a very, convincing performance when you're looking at just probably like a lamppost with a prop for a head on it, because you'll be just thinking, what the hell am I looking at? So yeah, I completely agree with Rafe, and I think it is fantastic that, number one, everything that we can see is actually a real landscape. It's a real place in our world that they went and they filmed at. I think that just gives you a sense, and the actors a sense, of the world they're trying to be immersed in is absolutely very realistic. And not only that fact, but this particular comment goes all the way to the Trollocs as well. As we all know, they created the Trollocs costumes for the extras to, perform in. And so seeing that in the flesh, very much in a physical form, again, is an added bonus for the actors to, get their roles in, feel like they're in the world and in the moment, especially with the Winter Night attack. Could you imagine if that was CGI, how difficult that would be to, choreograph the sort of battles and not seeing the sheer size difference between you and the monsters you're trying to fight? It just wouldn't feel right. So that's something I'm very, very happy has been. That's the route they've gone down for this show.
But there will be one who can stand against him. And it's one of the five of you.
Yeah, so this is Nynaeve, who's one of the most important characters in the books and beloved by fans around the world. And she has this iconic trait in the books where she tugs on her braid. And it happens, anyone who's read the books will know that it happens probably more times than you actually want it to in the books. But it was really important to me to get into that show, this iconic moment of actually tugging that braid. And so this is just after she's done something pretty incredible in the show, and it's a tug not only of strength but also defiance. So we did try to get a braid tug in there for all the fans of the books to see that we did right by our Nynaeve.
Okay, yeah. So this is interesting. I wonder what it is Nynaeve has just done. And what it was that made her want to tug on her braid and do that. That's going to be interesting to see. Yeah. What can I say? Yeah, we all love a Nynaeve braid tug. So yeah, that's going to be cool to see.
We're in.
What are those? His army is coming.
This is a great shot of one of our Trollocs, and it was one of the moments that we really wanted to carve out in the show and show off our approach to creating these monsters the best as possible, which is, it was really important to me that they be a mix of practical and visual effects so that you would never... Your brain can't look at this and actually know exactly what is real and exactly what is created in the computer. And the more that we're doing that, I think the more successful we are at creating something that just makes you look at it and go, shit, that's scary, instead of, oh, that's a cool VFX. We really wanted something that had as many real elements as possible to it. And this shot, for instance, does. Like, there was a man there on the day in a suit, like roaring with a weapon in his hand, but there's also some really beautiful visual effects work that's been done onto it to take it and make it something that you could never create in real life.
Okay, so that's interesting, and I think to be expected. So I very much felt this when watching the Winter Night scene. They very much burst onto the scene, so to speak, in Emond's Field, and you cannot necessarily tell that they're not real, and that's the fact, because they are real. They were in costume, and obviously they've designed the costumes, but there's maybe just a polishing touch that they wanted to do with the CGI, just to give it an extra sense of realism on top of the costume design that they had. I think that's what Rafe is really trying to say there, and it will blur the lines even more. And it may be just a few certain shots and scenes where they really just couldn't do that in a physical form, and so they had to then use CGI to bring that particular shot or sequence to life. That's what I believe Rafe is getting at there. Oh, of course, now Tara and Scap obviously in the background of Faldara.
What we're seeing right here, this is actually the city of Faldara, and in the distance beyond it, you can see Tarwin's Gap. And just like everything else in the show, we really wanted to do a combination of the practical locations, practical effects, and expanding it with the VFX world. So what you see in front of you is partially shot in the Canary Islands. in a beautiful volcanic plain, partially shot at an incredible brick structure in the Czech Republic that provides a lot of the base of the city itself, and then partially augmented in the VFX world with the work of our production design team and the VFX team, so that hopefully when it all melds together, it doesn't just look like a big computer generated image. You can see the pieces in it that are real, and those little tiny bodies are real extras in a cold Czech winter walking across that bridge.
Cool. Yeah, you can. I think I can kind of guess what's real and what's not there. I would say the ground is very much real, and as you said, the bridge that the extras are walking over is real. I would say Tywin's gap is pretty much certain to be CGI. And just to go back, we've had loads of shots of, Rand in a green in Faldara, which was in the Czech Republic, that photographer just happened to stumble across. And so, yeah, that's going to be obviously put into here. And when we looked at those shots, I was wondering, what is the exterior of Faldara going to look like? Because you really couldn't get a glimpse or understanding or inkling of exactly how Faldara would look when it was brought to life, or when we would at least get to see it. And I think they've done an absolutely fantastic job with the way Faldara looks. When I think to other, fortresses or the sorts of places you see in other fantasy films or shows, I don't really think of anything that looks anything quite like Faldara, I have to say. So that's really cool to see. It's very much a unique design, all for itself, all for its own. And yeah, I definitely, when I look at this, I don't think, oh, this is a lot of CGI here, or oh, this is sticking out. It looks realistic. I don't think we're going to be taken out of the moment. I don't think any of us are going to be taken out of the moment when we're watching this show. I think we're going to be so engrossed in everything we're watching and seeing and listening to, and yeah, we're going to be writing.
Our enemies are everywhere. They will leave no one standing.
What's up here now is a shot of Lan, probably more emotional than anyone who's read the books would ever expect to see him.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that we've worked really hard to do in the show is to show this bond between Aes Sedai and Warder. It's a bond between a woman, the Aes Sedai, and a man, her Warder, that is incredibly complicated, and I think is one thing that totally sets this show apart from anything else that's on TV right now, because this relationship is so interesting between this man and woman. And they can actually feel what the other one feels. So to be able to really show that on the show, we didn't want characters just talking about it. We wanted to bring emotion to the forefront for them, see something, I can't say what it is, but that would elicit this kind of emotion from the characters, and see that they feel each other's pain, not just physical, but also the emotions that the other one is feeling, and give light to this really unique male-female relationship that's not usually sexual, that you never get to see on a show of such balance between men and women as you get between Moiraine and Lan, and between the other Aes Sedai and their warders.
This is really interesting, and he's put it in a lovely way, and it's very true. This is such a unique bond between a man and woman. In general, I feel it's almost can be even more intimate than a sexual relationship or just a relationship in general, because if you think about it, as he said, they can actually feel each other's emotions. That's something we cannot, as normal humans, do. We can get an inkling and we can see from the physical what their emotions are, or what that person's emotions are, but to actually feel what that other person is feeling, and for that to be mixed within your own emotions as well, is very powerful. And I think the scenes that Rafe mentioned, that he cannot tell us what they are, is what, and the reasoning why we're seeing Lan be so emotional is this. Now, this is just my theory on what it is, and I think it goes back to the White Cloaks, or perhaps some of the Logain scenes with the Aes Sedai. I believe, obviously, this is the aftermath of one of the Aes Sedai losing their life from one of those two scenes, and this is kind of like a funeral ceremony of sorts, because obviously you can see Lan is in a completely different garment, and so what I believe is happening in that scene is that's not necessarily Lan's actual emotion. I believe that's Moraine's emotions projected onto Lan, and Moraine just cannot, obviously being an Aes Sedai, what's the word here? Let out those feelings, and so Lan is almost the catalyst for letting Moraine's emotions out, and so that's what Moraine is feeling in that moment, but it's coming through Lan, and Lan is the one that's letting the emotions out. That's what I believe could be happening in these scenes, and I think it's a really interesting and, as Rafe mentioned, unique dynamic and feature of the show and the books that nothing else can come close to. Nothing else out there has that. If you think of all the shows, none of the shows have anything quite similar to that at all, and I think it's going to be one of those, unique selling points or standpoints that obviously we as book readers all know and understand, but now the casual audience that will start to watch the show will start to see and think, wow, this is a really cool thing that's going on between the Aes Sedai and their warders.
You've lost too many people already. I can't lose you.
Yeah, so here in this shot we see some very intimidating white cloaks circling two of our actors, and then there's just an extra we forgot to paint out in the corner of the screen just asleep. No, this is a character that I think we've already announced online, named Aram, who's one of the Tinkers, or the traveling people as they'd like to call themselves, and he has the bright colored cloak that you would normally see with them, with lots of pinks and purples in it, and I will leave a mystery though why he is in the sad little position that he's in this shot.
Interesting. So I've already mentioned that this is one of the things from this breakdown of Rafe that I found out while I was on Dusty Reel, that it was Aram, and so I thought at the time he's either knocked out or he's dead, but there's a third option now that's obviously come to my mind, and is one that I should have thought of when I was watching it the first time, and that is the White Cloaks might have absolutely burnt down the Tinker camp, and Aram is mourning the loss of his parents and the rest of his people. That's what I believe could be the third option for that particular scene. And so he's kind of cradled up in the ball because he can't fight, he doesn't know how to defend himself and all of that sort of thing. And then we're obviously going to get the payoff later on down the line. Perhaps. Who knows?
If we do not stop the Dark One now, the whole world will burn.
Yeah, so right here we're looking at a waygate, which is something that's hugely important in the books as a means of travel between places that are very distant from each other. So there's this world that Channelers created that sort of moves between our world, and if you can open up these waygates, you can travel across huge distances in a short amount of time. But there's also incredible danger if you do use the ways to travel. So it's a balance that the characters are constantly deciding whether they want to strike or not, and almost no one ever uses the ways. So in this scene, when Moiraine decides to take our characters through the ways, it is only because there's intense pressure upon her, and once they do walk through that gate, what meets them on the other side is pretty terrifying.
Ooh, these scenes, I'm just getting excited thinking about when we actually get to watch them. This is crazy. Sometimes I kind of forget we're about to see this month everything we've read for some of you guys 30 plus years, for some of us 15 plus, for some of you 20 plus. No matter how long it is, we're all going to be seeing these scenes that we've read and have internalized in our mind's eye for so long come to life. It's quite ridiculous, really. And yeah, we're now 18, 19 days away. It's crazy. Okay, so yeah, I know a lot of people still don't particularly like the Waygate designs. The only thing I can think of why they might have gone with this particular design route is practical reasons and just the way they've gone about the first season. And so maybe what I'm thinking, this particular Waygate and the way it's being designed might not necessarily be the only style of Waygate we see. Maybe we're going to get the Waygates we've seen in the books. But just for this particular purpose and reason, the mention that Rafe has of, what was it? Pressure or trepidation of what's maybe following the group, or the need to get to the next place along their journey in a quicker time, is the reasoning why it's kind of the way it looks. Who knows? I don't know. I could be going off on one there and it could be completely wrong and this is how the Waygate's going to be. But yeah. But when we get into the ways and we see that brought to life, because those are... sorry. Those scenes in the ways have always been another thing that struck me. I have a very vivid personal look that I have with the Waygates, and I'm sure we all do. So I'm hoping it's very similar to that. But what we can say is it's going to be absolutely pitch black. And then when we see that on the screen, because obviously we're going to be watching this in the dark. I'm not having a light on when I watch this. But when we see that in the dark, that's going to be really cool to see. So yeah, I can't wait. These 18, 19 days are going to feel like 18 or 19 years to me.
Yeah, so in these shots here, you can see Moiraine and Alana and Logain all using the one power. And the great thing about it in the books is that it does have so many complex uses. So we have so much room to go with this one power, even beyond season 1. We're just scratching the surface of what you can really do with it here. And one of the core things that you do see is that when Logain is using the one power, there's a black oily slick that you see coming over it, and that is something called the corruption. And that black corruption is something that drives male channelers mad, and it's a really, really important thing both in the books and in the show, and we had to figure out a way to show it visually. So we use this oily black slick, as it was described in the books, flowing over the one power to show what it means when a man is channeling. So yeah, as we've all mentioned, I love the way they've gone about introducing the taint, or the corruption as they're calling it for the show now. I think the design of it is really cool. I love the fact that both Saidar and Saidin are essentially going to look exactly the same, but for the added corruption that the male channelers will have, and through the visualization of it, I think it looks really neat. It stands out, both Saidar and Saidin, and the differences between them in the current state. So yeah, really cool, and I love the design that they went with for that. Oh, the idea. So I think that this shot in the trailer is probably one that will generate some of the most online conversation about what it's representing. And I don't want to stifle that conversation by just telling people what it is. So I will say that we try very hard in the show to use something that Robert Jordan used in the books, which was these prologues or out of POV chapters that just show us something totally different than what we expected. And sometimes those are flashbacks, and sometimes those are flash forwards. Sometimes those are something completely unexpected. And we've tried to use that the same way on the show. So I can't say whether this is a flashback or a flash forward or a lateral flash of something that we are seeing happen for a character that we won't get to really know for seasons to come. But I do think that this scene is one of my favorites in season 1. And I hope that fans of the books will be excited when they finally realize what it's representing.
Wowee, that's quite the statement. A lot of people have talked about what Rafe alludes to in that scene, that's ridiculous. We've known for so long we would see Aiel in the first season, but I believe for a lot of us, what we believed the Aiel would be is in the present day that we read the books in. Of course, as we all know, those are the Avienda, Ruach, those sorts of people, those sorts of Aiel, or the wise ones, maybe Amiss. So the fact that obviously he says it's most likely, maybe it won't be, a present day Aiel, and it could be a flash forward or a flash back. It's the real interesting thing. But not only that, a lot of people have mentioned this. Where are they situated in the scene, for starters? This looks very much like Dragonmount, and we know certain things happen in Dragonmount in certain moments, whether that's in a flashback or present or whatever. With the Aiel, that has huge consequences for the series later and presently. So I feel we are more likely looking at a flashback, as many a person has alluded to who these two particular characters may be here. We've obviously got one Aiel, and I'm not going to mention who it is or what army they're from, because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody out there, so I'm going to leave it as vague as I can. But who these two characters and what factions they're from would give a lot away in these scenes that we're going to see on the show. And I think what it is, or could potentially be, if a lot of you guys and myself included now are correct upon, it's going to be really, really cool to see actually in the show. And it's probably something we might not have necessarily thought would be included.
So that is it from me on the trailer. I am sure that there's lots more questions everyone has, but hopefully this has given you a little bit of an insight into what we did and how we did it. And I hope that everyone wants to tune in on November 19th to Prime Video to watch The Wheel of Time.
Why did you say you hope? You know you're going to have 100,000 minimum of us watching it. Oh, that was good. It was really interesting. I like that video a lot. So yeah, okay guys, that's the end of the video. If you've enjoyed my kind of reaction to it, leave the video a like. And if you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe as well, because I'll be doing the breakdown of the the actor interviews that IGN did next as well, but should be coming up Tuesday or Wednesday this week. Thanks for watching guys, I'll catch you all in the next video.